Last week, we discussed the impending doom of Hollywood. As the media was frantically warning us, the entire entertainment industry was on the verge of collapse, thanks to a writer's strike, an actor's strike, and a series of supposed blockbusters that turned out to be flops. And this was, in some ways, an ironic combination of factors, given that the quality and performance of these movies would seem to indicate that the writers and actors had already been on strike for many decades. The average viewer will come out of the latest Hollywood dud, hear that the writers had been on strike or just went on strike, and respond, wait, the movie had writers? It already seems like these films are being generated by AI, and now they really will be, and I don't think we'll be able to tell much of a difference when that happens. So it has been a gloomy time in Hollywood all around, but this weekend has given them a glimmer of hope. A false hope, I think, and a hope that will teach them all the wrong lessons, but hope all the same. The Hollywood Reporter declares a box office stunner, a historic weekend for movies. They report, quote, "The summer box office just went nuclear. Filmmaker Greta Gerwig's female-fueled Barbie opened to a historic $155 million domestically, a threshold usually reserved for male-driven superhero fare or marquee IP, such as the final Harry Potter movie. It came in well ahead of an expected $90 million to $110 million and helped fuel one of the biggest weekends in history. Barbie, which brings to life Mattel's iconic fashion doll, is also strutting to big numbers overseas. The pick launched to an impressive $182 million from 70 markets for a global bow of $337 million against a $145 million production budget. In North America, Barbie scored the biggest domestic start ever for a movie directed by a woman, solo or otherwise." After gushing for several more paragraphs about Barbie, the article does mention that Christopher Nolan's film Oppenheimer also opened this weekend to an enormous haul, raking in $80 million. This makes it Nolan's biggest opening weekend for any of his non-Batman films. Especially impressive, far more impressive than Barbie's performance, as we'll see, because his movie is an original 3-hour R-rated historical drama. It is very difficult to make that kind of film into a smash hit. People don't generally flock to theaters to watch incredibly long character studies about historical figures. That is unprecedented, or nearly so. There is, however, plenty of precedent for moviegoers crowding theaters to watch movies based on familiar brands. Okay, it's not really historic. Audiences are increasingly becoming bored with franchise films and brand films, as Indiana Jones and The Flash and Little Mermaid and many others have discovered. But if there is a brand with a large and dedicated fan base that hasn't had its own film in a long time, then it'll probably do pretty well in its opening weekend. And that's the story with Barbie. The movie is a smash hit because Barbie, as a brand, is a smash hit. The quality of the film doesn't make a difference. The directing, the acting, the writing, none of that factors into the equation. Okay, it could have just been a movie where you're literally staring at a Barbie doll sitting in the corner. And because it's called Barbie, it would have made $150 million. Mothers and daughters did not file into the theaters over the weekend because they really wanted to see what Greta Gerwig cooked up. Nor did they come because they were big Margot Robbie fans. They came because it's Barbie. It's a brand they like. And American consumers are conditioned to salivate whenever their favorite brand rings the bell. This weekend was not really a vindication of Hollywood or the filmmakers behind Barbies, but rather, if anything, a vindication of Pavlov and his dogs. Barbie's box office performance is a result of conditioning and not much else. Now, if anyone deserves the credit, though, for the biggest box office debut for any female director in history, it is not the female director, but the marketing department. Because they're the ones who knew enough to lie about the true content and message of the film. Because as we've now discovered, though it shouldn't really have come as a surprise to anyone, the Barbie movie is a preachy feminist screed about taking down the patriarchy. It is a gender studies lecture in Barbie packaging. And I know this not because I watched the film. I'd rather jump feet first into a wood chipper than sit through that film. I don't need to watch Barbie to know that it's bad, for the same reason that I don't need to pull a rotten onion out of the garbage and eat it in order to know that I won't like the taste. I've never thrown myself into a volcano, but I feel that I can safely say that the experience would be unpleasant and probably a little hot. So some books can be judged by their covers, absolutely. Or at least by their back covers where you find the description. And we now have descriptions of the Barbie movie which make the themes clear. Something that the marketing never did, and intentionally so. Fox reports, quote, "Hollywood movie critics are widely praising Barbie as the most unwavering feminist summer blockbuster ever to exist, giving the new film particular adoration for its messaging around the patriarchy and gender roles. The film starring Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling boasts a strong 89% critic score at Rotten Tomatoes, with many reviews surprised by director Greta Gerwig's willingness to engage in extensive social commentary. So surprising. A Hollywood film director is engaging in political commentary? No one's ever heard of such a thing. Quote, once an equal parts fascinating and controversial Mattel toy, both loved and hated, a tiny-waisted, vacuously smiling, slender doll designed like a straight male fantasy is now the complicated feminist symbol of empowerment in Gerwig's hands, the Wrap wrote. Quote, but we aren't talking about an empty you go girl kind of empowerment here. That would be too simple-minded for Gerwig, whose articulate and accessible feminism has always been fiercely multifaceted and complex. Barbie is both a master's thesis on feminism and an Austin Powers-esque romp, the Globe and Mail noted. The Wrap also stated that the movie delivers a fierce feminist statement dressed in pink, while the Globe and Mail declared that the film, quote, most captivating and unwaveringly feminist summer blockbuster ever to exist. Meanwhile, IndieWire praised the film's outside-the-box and funny feminist fantasia and singled out Gosling's performance of newfound male rage and patriarchal power as a particular highlight. Funny, they didn't tout this thing as a master thesis on feminism in the trailer. I can guarantee you they're not going to put that on the poster, okay? A master thesis on feminism. Come on, bring your kids. You know a company is looking out for you when they actually upgrade your service and don't charge you for it. This is great news for new and current Pure Talk customers. Pure Talk just added data to every plan and includes a mobile hotspot with no price increase whatsoever. If you've considered Pure Talk before but haven't made the switch, take a look again. For just $20 a month, you'll get unlimited talk, text, and now 50% more 5G data, plus their new mobile hotspot. This is why I love Pure Talk. They're veteran-owned and only hire the best customer service team located right here in the great USA. Most families are saving almost $1,000 a year while enjoying the most dependable 5G networks in America. Remember, you vote with how you spend your money, so stop supporting woke wireless companies that don't support you. When you go to puretalk.com/Walsh, you'll save an additional 50% off your first month because they actually value you. That's puretalk.com/Walsh. Pure Talk, wireless for Americans, by Americans. Companies are strong-arming their customers to support abortion, canceling customers for their political views, and making a mockery of women by supporting transgender models. No government agency, institution, or company is allowed to just be what it is anymore and focus on fulfilling the task that it was made to fulfill. A beer company can't just make beer anymore. Their primary concern is not with brewing and distributing beer, but with showing their support for the left's political and cultural agenda. Well, Public Square offers a new solution. Public Square is an app and website where you can get connected to tens of thousands of businesses from all different industries that share your values, your values for life, family, and freedom. Public Square also offers discounts to many high-quality businesses on the platform, so you can actually have an incentive to spend money with companies that don't hate you. Whether you're looking for new athletic clothing that knows what a woman is, a banking partner you can count on, or simply a new restaurant in the area where you're not going to get lectured about your political views as you're trying to enjoy a meal, whatever you're looking for, head over to publicsq.com. Public Square is free to join as a customer or as a business owner. You can get started at publicsq.com or download their app today. That's publicsq.com. They didn't title the movie The Adventures of Feminist Barbie. No mentions of patriarchy or male rage either in any of the marketing. It is, again, not in the least bit surprising that these themes dominate the film. Not surprising to us anyway, as people who pay attention and are aware of what's happening in the world and in our culture. But the average Barbie viewer is, on the other hand, oftentimes not so aware. And that's why the sleight of hand trick worked. Dangle a funny and fun and nostalgic and family-friendly Barbie film in front of the audience, and then when you have them in the seat, whack them over the head with the feminist stick. Sell them the Barbie doll and let them open the package and find Gloria Steinem inside. Now, we know about the aggressive, male-hating feminist bent of this film, thanks in part to some brave souls like Ben Shapiro who actually sat and endured it so they could report on its content. This is a form, I have to say, of journalistic courage far more impressive than reporters who cover war zones, especially the reporters in Ukraine right now. But we also know about the movie's real message from the generally positive reviews of liberal movie critics. The review in Variety gets into some of the details that the film's marketing materials smartly glossed over. Quote, at the same time, Barbie is experiencing her rude awakening. Ken is busy filling his empty head with all the possibilities that patriarchy entails. In Barbie land, Ken's job is a deliberately ill-defined afterthought, basically just beach, whereas in the real world, dudes rule, an idea he takes back to Barbie Land with pointedly absurd results, brainwashing all the women into behaving like obedient housewives. This is apparently the major underlying theme in the movie. Men in Barbie Land are useless and stupid, but then men in the real world are useless and stupid, but also violent, predatory, and in control of everything. Ken witnesses this dynamic and tries to export the patriarchy back to Barbie Land. And they actually call it the patriarchy in the film. That phrase is used many times. I should mention that the Variety review is not entirely positive. Okay, to their credit, they do have some criticisms of the film, including, it takes issue with the movie and specifically with the way that men are portrayed. But the issue, according to film critic Peter DeBug, is that all of this time spent making men look terrible might risk taking the spotlight off of women. So there's nothing wrong with sending the message that all men are dumb pigs, but you should give them less screen time in the process, Peter says. Quote, "It's upsetting in a useful way to see Barbie confronted with the overnight impact of rampant patriarchy, a concept that has rarely looked more off-putting than the frat boy fantasy caricatured here. Think of it as the misogynistic alternative marketed by old-school beer commercials, the polar opposite of Mattel's mid-'80s "We girls can do anything, right, Barbie?" campaign. While the Barbies plot to take back the government, Gerwig gives all the Ken dolls an over-the-top musical number, "I'm Just Ken," which is so amusingly self-involved it risks subverting the very point the movie's trying to make. If Barbie is all about centering and celebrating women, why let Ken steal the show? So this is the modern media for you. The only problem with demonizing men is that it requires you to talk about men too much. And that's the Barbie movie for you, too. Thousands of moms took their daughters to see this thing over the weekend. And, it is certainly a wonderful movie to show your daughter if you want your daughter to be a vapid, man-hating harpy. If that's your great dream for your daughter, then by all means, show them Greta Gerwig's Barbie. But this is not actually what most mothers want for their daughters. So for comparison's sake, contrast this with the general public reaction when a movie wears its feminist credentials on its sleeve. Take the upcoming Snow White remake, for example. We've already seen how they traded in Snow White for Snow Brown, casting a Hispanic woman in the title role. And for whatever reason, they decided that the most inclusive approach is to take casting opportunities away from actors with dwarfism by turning the 7 dwarves into regular-sized carnies. But they're also changing the whole arc and theme of the story to make it more feminist, as this interview with the stars revealed. Watch.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that
she's not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
It's not 1937 anymore, that's true. More's the pity. Now, we're not going to focus on the point that the taller woman there, Gal Gadot, is playing the evil queen, and the shorter one is playing Snow White. Now, remember that in the story, the queen is supposed to be jealous of Snow White's beauty. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all? And the mirror is supposed to tell her that it's Snow White. So we're supposed to buy that, okay? We're supposed to buy that Gal Gadot is asked who's the fairest one of all. And it's not her, it's Rachel Zegler. This is a real problem. Kind of hard to pull off in this case, as the evil queen is significantly more attractive than Snow White. But putting that aside, the point is that the clip you just heard has been roundly mocked by nearly everyone. The movie is destined to be a worse flop than the woke Little Mermaid bastardization was. I mean, it's guaranteed to be a flop. Because nobody wants to see a fairy tale where the damsel in distress no longer needs saving and the central romance has been replaced with a dreary sermon about self-empowerment. Nobody wants to see Snow White become a corporate middle manager and achieve true happiness by moving into a 2-bedroom condo with her cat. They want to see her get saved by the prince and fall in love. That's what people want to see. When you advertise ahead of time that your film is going to go the former route rather than the latter, going the feminist route rather than the classic route, nobody will see it. So feminism has to trick you. It has to smuggle itself in. It can't walk in the front door announcing its arrival, because people will scream and run out the back door, away from it. And that's because, despite what Snow Brown claims, nearly all women innately desire a man to protect them and provide for them. That's what almost all women want. Women want to be swept off their feet by Prince Charming. That's why these stories have lived on for centuries and resonated with each new generation. The feminist fairy tale resonates with no one. It's a vision of what feminism wants women to do and what it wants women to think and what it wants women to want, but it will always ring false because it is false. Now, that's not to say that feminism hasn't won many disciples in the modern world. Obviously, it has. It has proven to be a devastating and lethal force, far deadlier than the bomb at the center of the other blockbuster this weekend. Feminism has killed 60 million babies, and that's just the beginning of the destruction that it has wrought on the world. But it wins adherents through brainwashing, intense and constant indoctrination, especially in public schools, and by playing on a woman's resentment and hatred and self-pity and desire to blame others for her problems. This can work in the culture. Unfortunately, it doesn't really work as a fairy tale because fairy tales are aspirational and fanciful and whimsical. Feminism, on the other hand, is base and vulgar and hateful. And it also doesn't work in marketing materials for a film based on a beloved children's toy. That's why they hid it away, tucked it under all the pink and plastic, and then came out with the man-hating sledgehammer when the audience was already sitting in the seats. So the only question is whether those mothers who took their daughters then, to see this film, did they then spend the whole ride home explaining why all that stuff in the movie was wrong? Better yet, as soon as they saw what was really happening, did they grab their daughter by the hand and leave the theater before the movie ended? Or were they too obtuse to notice the toxic feminist message even when it was delivered with a sledgehammer? Or were many of these mothers already man-hating feminists themselves, and so they didn't see any problem with it? I suspect a mix of all these options has played out this past weekend, but I hope there were plenty in the first category. And for any parents who hadn't yet taken their daughters to see this movie, but planned on going in the future, well, now you know better. Thanks for checking out this video. If you'd like to listen to my full podcast on the go, you can check out The Matt Walsh Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.